My name is Rolando Llanes. I'm principal of Civica Architects. We're an architectural design firm that specializes in educational facilities. And you could see in this image here where we paired the approved conceptual plan of the current or previously approved project, and what we are proposing on the right. On the left, you see what was intended there, again, consistent with the LMD, mixed-use residential and retail, 144 dwelling units, 16,000 square feet of retail, and a total of about 364 parking spaces. On the right, you see our proposal, which I'll get into in greater detail in a second. We're proposing a K-12 charter school campus. All the buildings there are all academic buildings supporting that program. We are setting aside a significant amount of preservation area, which again is central to our approach to this project and central to our presentation as well, whereas prior to that, the prior conceptual plan was simply mitigating the preservation area by paying into a fund. And by contrast, even though we exceed the required parking spaces that we are required to have for our campus, it is far less than the 364 spaces that was intended, and I only underscore that. That helps me underscore, I think, the issue of the amount of asphalt and coverage on the site. A phased K-12 campus with a maximum of 1,500 students. This is not going to happen day one. The phasing, which I'll show you in a second, will allow the school to grow in incremental phases over the course of some years. And so the campus won't initially start like a light switch where you have 1,500 students. It will gradually grow into that. They will continue their high-rated college preparatory academic programs. In fact, now they're going to have a setting more conducive to the college prep end goal that academic program has established for the years that Erica was talking about already. We have multiple arrival and dismissal shifts. This is critical to how the campus works with regards to arrivals in the morning, dismissals in the afternoon. The fact that there are multiple shifts helps if you will, break down the traffic flow during the mornings and afternoon. There are some schools that actually operate, some schools of similar or larger size to this one, campuses, I should say, that operate with one arrival and dismissal shifts, and in this case, we have taken great care to look at a minimum of 2 over the course of the day. It's designed around the concept of an academic village, classroom buildings, science, computer labs, media labs, administrative offices, cafeterias, gymnasium, outdoor play areas, and finally an on-site natural preserve incorporated into the academic program. One of the things that's beautiful about the site is what's there today. And what we want to do is preserve as much of that as possible, and not just for the sake of preserving it and not paying into a fund, but really for the sake of incorporating it into the life of that campus so that students and visitors and staff and so on are part of this beautiful landscape over the course of their daily experience on campus. Some relevant site data that I wanted to talk about. The LMD issue has already been mentioned. The site is 10.4 acres in size. There's accessibility on 2 major arterials, California and Peacock. That's one of the very attractive parts of this project, is that the site has a tremendous amount of exposure to these 2 roads, to these 2 large roadway networks. There's a roundabout, as you know, on the south corner of the site, southwest corner there on the site, and that roundabout helps do many things with respect to the daily life of the streets in that area, but it helps tremendously the movement of vehicles in and out of the campus, as you'll see in a second. And finally, the natural landscape, the uplands that exist there today, as I mentioned earlier, is something that is truly attractive to us about this site, and something that we want to, as much as possible, integrate into the life of the campus. Finally, you could see in yellow, that is the buildings, the footprints of the buildings that we're proposing, and that equates to about 14% of the total size of the site. So it's a very low impact footprint, if you will, on the site. I wanted to, again, just underscore the difference in what might be or could be at that site in terms of density and intensity versus what we're proposing. And if you could see that we're proposing a much less intense approach, again, focused on the notion of preservation rather than overtaking the whole site, paying into a fund and just sort of making it whatever you want. I think that the site has basically told us a lot about what it wants to be, if, in a way, and we've tried to listen in that regard. Two-story buildings, nothing higher than that. It respects the limitations on height that come with the designation. A lot of natural light. All instructional rooms have natural light in them. The cafeterias, the media centers as well. The gymnasiums and so on. So we take great pride in an architecture that we feel fits the neighborhood, fits the community, and is consistent with the language of the buildings around it, yet at the same time projects a kind of sense that this is a school, this is a great institution in your community. Very important, how long is the queue? How many vehicles can you accumulate? We have a 135 vehicle queue with a total length, cumulative length of 2,900 feet, over half a mile of queue. That comes in on Peacock, as you can see by the beginning of the red dashed line there. Makes an eastbound turn, turns back westbound, and then there's a tandem of 3 vehicles that line up at that point, all the way to the end of the queue, where the last 8 rows of cars are the ones that are allowed to unload and load the child with the help of trained staff, very similar to what many other schools have been doing very successfully. Once you are done with that, once that part ends, you exit by the turn. You make a U-turn at this point across the plaza around that sort of large tree that we planted there. You come through the lot here, unencumbered by the queue at that point, and you exit and have to make a right out on Peacock. You cannot make a left onto Peacock at that point. If you're heading eastbound, you simply go down to the roundabout and you head back east, or if you go south, you go to the roundabout and you go south. So again, the roundabout in that case helps tremendously to move traffic around, prevents us from having to allow anybody coming out of the campus to turn immediately eastbound on Peacock. That's something we don't want to happen during arrivals and dismissal.